Again, legendary men return in Fatal Fury 2, which is both sexist and poor marketing. Because fan favorite Mai is in this game. And it's a much better game than the first Fatal Fury on the Sega Genesis. Published by Takara, this is the 16-bit Sega Genesis version of Fatal Fury 2. And no, it's not an SNK Neo Geo game, it certainly doesn't look like it. But for those in the early 1990s who wanted to own a home console version of this SNK fighting game, whose parents didn't buy them a Neo Geo AES, and seriously, whose parents did, this was available on your Genesis for a lot less money. And you get 16-bit bouncing boobs. By the way, just say that now. That's fun to say, isn't it? Run around and just say it all day, what the hell? Would you like fries with that, sir? No, 16-bit bouncing boobs, thanks. Blast processing makes everything better. Okay, so this game isn't as good as the Neo Geo version, but it does cost a lot less money, and it certainly did back then, too. You get a large roster of fighters, many of whom are familiar, like Terry and Andy, and some others who aren't as common. The game looks better than Fatal Fury 1 on the Genesis. It plays more or less the same. It's actually a little bit slower, because they obviously packed more into the visuals. Also, the sound quality is better. Additionally, this plays with the 6-button Sega Genesis controller. You get a single-player arcade-style mode, you can play 2-player against your friends, and there's a survival mode. Odds are that fans of the series will find this version lacking the character of the Neo Geo console releases. It's actually a pretty nice fighting game on the Genesis, which has a fair number of fighting games in its massive catalog. I would put this one above par for the genre. While it may not be as good as Eternal Champions or Street Fighter 2, it's a lot better than trash like Fighting Masters. And stuff that's so bad it's good like Pit Fighter. I mean, how many fighting games on the Genesis took the time to create 3 different times of day for the 3 rounds of fighting in Fatal Fury 2? When you start, it's the daytime, then it's dusk, and finally nighttime, depending on which scene it is. While there's not a lot of movement in the backgrounds, the detail on the fighters and in the backgrounds is really impressive for the era and for the Genesis. Especially considering how many fighters and background scenes there are. Fatal Fury 2 is also available on the Super Nintendo, and I have not played that version to compare the two. Both this one and the SNES version are really cheap and easy to find online these days. eBayisably, as one might say. I particularly enjoy this scene with all of the bulls running by. It's like a never-ending supply of bulls. Bulls on parade. Now that song is stuck in your head. It's Fatal Fury 2 on the Sega Genesis with 16-bit bouncing boobs. Something that Sega Genesis owners can be proud of because the Neo Geo doesn't have blast processing.